when I was in my 20s and 30s, and you could look at some of these CEOs and they're like, oh, they're just disconnected. They're not understanding what we want or what we need or where business is headed. And yet now we're in these roles. Why do we think the younger generation's thinking anything differently about us? I remember what it felt like living paycheck to paycheck. I remember what it felt like when my voice was included, when our team's voice was included. I also remember what it felt like when our team's voice or my voice wasn't asked for or included. And when decisions were made that impacted me. I still remember people that would have an impact on losing maybe 2 hours a week. And they would, and I'll still remember this person, her name is Sherry, said, I don't know what bill I'm not going to pay this month now. And so that really, when I think back, you use the word impatience, I have an absolute impatience, because every day as leaders, if we don't do what's best for our associates or employees, we're letting people down, and we're ultimately letting society down. Being a leader is a responsibility, and we must take that responsibility with the highest calling and act with the highest amount of urgency to deliver, not even to deliver, to really over deliver for our people and for society. And when we do that, yes, revenues and profits will come. And when I'm talking with our teams, it's about connecting authentically with our people to understand what they're experiencing. So that perspective of where I started my career, that really drives me to my core values. My values as a person is about curiosity, empathy, and impact. And the empathy is about how do I understand what our people are experiencing, what's working, what's not working. I use my curiosity to understand how can I connect with them differently? How can I really have a two-way dialogue? And how do I understand what's happening outside of Banfield, outside of the veterinary industry, to learn from other leaders on what's working and what are new ways of solving problems for our people or even consumers. And it's all in service of making an impact. You know, again, my personal purpose is to make a better world for people, and I also have a vision to really make a positive impact on society. And in order for me to do that, I use my values to bring that to life. And when you create the conditions to talk to people, they want to be seen, they want to be valued, they want to be heard, they want to be understood. And when you create that connection, they'll tell you anything. Only as long as you take action. Because if you don't respond to them, if you don't answer their emails or questions, or in my case, the DMs that I get on Instagram, they'll stop talking to you. And if you're not part of the conversation, you're missing the point of really what your people need. And no matter your industry, it's about taking action for your people, because when you take action and listen to your people, they're the ones dealing with the customers. They're the ones dealing with your suppliers. They're the ones that can really tell you what's working or what's not working. And the only way for myself and our team to have the right strategic direction is by listening to our people on what's working, what's not working, what do they need, what can we give them to be more efficient. And the strategic direction at Banfield is either created by or validated by our associates. And I think it's about taking action. 5.5 years ago, I put on scrubs and I worked in our hospital shoulder to shoulder with our associates. And I needed to understand what was happening in the world. What was it like to be working in a hospital? And the idea of me just going in an office and trying to create a strategic direction by understanding trends and all the variables that we all can look at, it just seemed inauthentic to me, and it seemed disconnected from what I felt like our associates possibly wanted, because I didn't know what they wanted. The only way I can know is by talking with them and working with them. So putting scrubs on, working in a hospital was a way for me to really connect with, this is what it feels like to be in our hospital. And then when I was in the office talking to our team, I was trying to understand a strategic direction. And every time it was, here's one of our goals, or here's one of our initiatives, I would say, well, why do we create that? What's it in service of? How's it going to make our associates' life better? How's it going to make the pet experience better? Or how's it going to make the clients, the consumers' life better? And sometimes I wouldn't even get answers. Or if I would, then I'd say, well, did our associates tell you that it's going to make their life better? Or how is that going to improve the quality of care in which the pet's going to receive, or the outcomes? Or where did the consumer say that? And how are we connecting with our consumers? And I found very consistently that we didn't have that data. And I found that that wasn't necessarily new to Banfield. It seemed like a lot of companies or a lot of people just would just make these decisions, and it's right what we think is right based on trends or what we're hearing. But really that connection authentically is important. This is a call to action here. We all have to move faster. And I would pose a question to really to everyone is, why haven't we moved faster? And I'll let that sit for a second, because I mean, I think it's something that frustrates me, and where my impatience gets activated even more is because we just came through, well, we're still in this pandemic, but we're coming through this now where we feel like we have a new normal, whether that's in business or our personal lives. And we have this exciting vision of crossing this finish line, hopefully this summer, where we can get back with friends in gatherings again. And I look at last year and say, like, why were we able to quickly mobilize and change how we did business to save our companies? And we were able to complete that in 3 to 6 months. But yet we had the calling and the same call to action for years on inclusion and diversity in our businesses, in our industries, in society. And we still haven't fixed that. Like, why is it that our business has to be at jeopardy for us to survive, to take action, to do the right thing for society and humanity? This is a humanity issue. What are we doing to make sure that we have the proper workforce representation with the cultural demographic shift that's happening in this country right now? I want to make sure that all pets deserve care, and they have access to care. And I also want to make sure where our hospitals are located, we're representing the society and the community in which they're in. And we have doctors that are role models for all of our children to aspire. Because what pains me is we have children that they have the aptitude, and they have the compassion and love and desire for pets, and they would want to become a veterinarian, but they don't see someone like them, and they don't have that opportunity, or they don't have that encouragement. So we formed a DVM, Doctors of Veterinary Medicine, DVM coalition, where we're working with other businesses to join this cause, to make sure that we have the proper representation. We're doing the right things as an industry around inclusion and diversity, all in service of making sure that those that love pets, that want to be a veterinarian, has those opportunities. The Edelman Trust Barometer is talking about now the role of the CEO and how employees are expecting more from the CEO now than they ever have. And I think for me, it always comes back to that perspective. Everyone on this call, think back to when you were, maybe in your 20s or maybe early 30s. And if you're there now, think about how are you viewing the leader or CEO of today? And so like when I go back to, I remember with my peers when I was in my 20s and 30s, and you could look at some of these CEOs and they're like, oh, they're just disconnected. They're not understanding what we want or what we need or where business is headed. And yet now we're in these roles. Why do we think the younger generation's thinking anything differently about us?
Right.
And we often just miss that perspective of the importance that we have in our roles and the influence that we carry. And often it's like, well, yes, I may have this role and this responsibility, but it's just me. It's just Brian. We view ourselves differently than how others view us, and of that perception that we have. And I think it really just goes back to the anchoring of, as a leader, here's the responsibility that I have. I have such an amazing honor to lead an organization, or to be a functional leader, or play a strong role as a senior leader in an organization. How are you casting that shadow? How are you creating culture? Because no matter your role in your organization, you are responsible for the culture that you create. And I just go back to that, because when we have that perspective to understand what it is, it's then about how we utilize our curiosity. How do we utilize conversations and what's happening in society, and asking those questions? Does this impact our people? And so again, having that dialogue, we were able to understand the mental health issues our people were going through from a COVID standpoint. Then is this an issue? Yes, it is. It's an issue because we're hearing about it in the news. We're then talking to our associates, validating that they need help with this. And therefore, what are the tools and resources that we're going to provide? Same thing on student debt. There's a massive student debt issue in this country. Okay, it's an issue. And then as a team, we talk about it. Does this issue impact our industry? Yes. Okay, how so? Veterinarians have the highest student debt to income ratio of any healthcare, of any professional. So what's our responsibility? Now we know something about it. We have a responsibility to do something. And once you know something about it, it's about what are you doing about it? So we created a student debt repayment program. We also know that education is a massive issue in this country where some people unfortunately don't have access to the funds to go to college. And so we had a fantastic strategic partnership with InStride, where we're now piloting, where we're paying for education for some of our associates so they can complete their college degree, because we know that's going to make a meaningful difference in their lives, and we have the responsibility to educate. And we do the right things, we're going to help. We're going to pay for their degree. They're going to get an education. They're going to stay with us, and they're going to grow their careers with Banfield. And if they leave, we made someone's life better. What's so wrong with that? And that's the responsibility that every business has and every leader has. But you can't activate it unless you're asking the right questions and talking to your people to understand what's really impacting them.